And outside Georgia are calling on Democratic Senate candidate Raphael Warnock to apologize or drop out of the race entirely after remarks from a 2011 sermon recently resurfaced. So let's get reaction to those comments and more and the backlash to them from the pastor of Glory to Glory Ministries, Bishop Aubrey. It's good to have you with us, Bishop.
Great being with you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we have heard that the remarks that are being played, Reverend Warnock talks about you can't serve God and something else, which we know is in the Bible. You can't serve God and mammon. You can't serve two masters. And he was saying that in the sense of you can't serve in the military and have God first in your life. But that's at least how some have portrayed it. But this is what his team says. They say that essentially what he was trying to say is the sermon. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the exact quote here, but basically they said he's someone that is trying to say you can't serve two masters at once. It was biblical. It wasn't meant to insult the military or anyone else. So how do you respond?
Well, first of all, Shannon, I heard the entirety of his sermon. And those that are trying to have a revisionist position right now, it's not going to do them very, very well. They've taken, first of all, the whole term of servitude totally out of content. Let me remind Mr. Warnock, it was the military, Christians, that served in liberating the tyrants of from the Democratic Party in the South. It was hundreds of thousands of white men, over 40,000 black men. They spilled their blood fighting to liberate. These were military men. And when they grabbed that old great flag and they marched forward, they were actually usurping an idea that comes from God and our Constitution, the very one that Mr. Warnock is now fighting against. So again, he doesn't represent the views of mainstream as far as Judeo-Christians. He does not represent any biblical orthodoxy as it relates to the military at all. And now to try to change his position, I think it's ridiculous. And I think really he should recuse himself because he doesn't live out, in my opinion, one of the greatest Georgians that ever lived, and that's Dr. Martin Luther King. Mr. Warnock is still trying to separate us by race, by gender, and this is not the idea of God, and it certainly should not be the idea of any great American.
Okay, just so I'm sorry, it took me a second to find this, but Terrence Clark, the communications director for the campaign, said about that you can't serve two masters. He said Reverend Warnock was speaking about the need to commit to a moral life before pursuing other priorities, having your priorities in order. That aside, he's getting a lot of attention for his praise of Jeremiah Wright, the Reverend that then Senator, then became President Barack Obama, had gone to his church, and there was controversy surrounding that. So back in March of 2008, he was asked, Reverend Warnock, about that and whether he still supported him. He said this. He said, "We celebrate Reverend Wright in the same way that we celebrate the truth-telling tradition of the black church, when preachers tell the truth, very often it makes people uncomfortable." What do you make of his assessments of that?
Well, first of
side of
well, Shannon, I'm an old Chicago guy, high school, college there, lived there the majority of my life before transplanting to Florida, and I can tell you, black liberation theology is something that Dr. Cone was really responsible for teaching Reverend and Dr. Jeremiah Wright, and it's something that Mr. Warnock holds as well. They actually believe that Israel is wrong. They believe that Jews are occupiers. And by the way, to your audience, and especially those in the Georgia area, they also believe that if you're white, that you should, in other words, denounce who you really are, because these are bigots. Black liberation theology is filled with bigotry. This is something that Reverend Warnock holds on to. There are multiple sources out there that will confirm that. He himself has said it. And I just think America, and not just Americans, but especially Georgians, black and white together, need to unite and make sure they repudiate this type of venom that Mr. Warnock is spewing into the veins of such a beautiful state as Georgia is.
All right, very quickly, because I don't want us to get cut off here, but